Dan Rubenstein, week 2 is just about winding down at time of recording. And you posed a question to me earlier in the day today on Slack, which was, hey, did every major college football player consume 53 beers last night?
Yes.
What is going on with this sport? The whole day was drunk, Dan. Week 2, still going. Maybe some more madness in the works here before all is said and done. But alas, a lot happened this week, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, Ty, and the answer to that question might change over the course of this show, as Oregon is currently playing Boise State down 6 at the start of the second half. So this will all seem very silly if you are not watching this show live on YouTube, youtube.com/@solidverbal, and you're listening after the fact via podcast or watching it after the fact. So you're going to have to ride this emotional wave with me, whereas you, as a Notre Dame human and to a lesser extent Penn State human, you're pretty on solid ground in terms of how you feel about the day right now.
I mean, there's nothing more that can be said that can hurt me at this point.
That's true.
So at least in that sense, yeah, I'm a bit sheltered from whatever may come our way here through the course of our recording. Thank you for joining us. Whether you're watching live, whether you're listening after the fact on Sunday or Monday on your commute, we appreciate having you. Hit follow, tell a friend. Let's grow the Verballerhood as much as we can, because if today was any indication, it's going to be a hell of a season. Also, go on out to our Patreon at Verballers.com. Check out what we have to offer. You can get these episodes ad-free, also bonus episodes and the like. You can vote in our Verballer Top 12 poll, which I am not eager to vote in at all. But that's going to drop on Sunday in the afternoon to get people to give their opinions.
Yeah, baby.
On where some of these teams fall. And yeah, through the course of the next 45 to 60 minutes or so, we're going to go through the biggest stories of the day. We're going to talk through some of the wackiness. We're going to give our dude alerts and your reverbs, play a little word association just like we did last week. So without further ado,
we can't have anyone freak out there, okay? We've got to keep our composure.
Week 2.
We've got too far. There's too much to lose. We've got to keep our composure.
I can offer no guarantees that I'm going to keep my composure, all right?
That's okay. We can start with Michigan, Texas if you want to ease into the sadness jacuzzi.
Let's start with Michigan, Texas. Let's get in the flow of this show before we really unearth all the demons here.
Yeah, let's dip a toe.
31-12 was the final of this game, Dan.
Yeah.
We made a prediction on the Thursday show that I think we came to a weird agreement on. We didn't plan it out. 23-13 was our final score. And almost immediately we got comments on YouTube from around the Verballerhood, Michigan fans chiming in saying, that's really disrespecting the defending champs.
Yeah.
And I guess in hindsight, they almost made it to 13, Dan, but 31-12 was your final score.
Opted for 2 in that moment, to be clear. So they were an extra point away from 13. Story was Texas, though. To me, it was, but continue.
Well, that's where I wanted to go next. What was the story for you? Because I feel like it was Texas as well. I don't want to dunk on Michigan here. That's not the point of this.
Right. So would you like me to talk about Texas?
Yes, I would.
They're good at college football. Texas is good. If you are a Texas fan, you should be doing the motion that people do in the crowd when they're trying to quiet their own home crowd because they're a little bit too loud when their own team is on offense. Like, yeah, I know. It's really exciting, but calm down. It's week 2. I know. I feel the same way too. Well, let's just keep it down because bad things can still happen. Texas is really good. Quinn Ewers looked very comfortable. He looked like the experienced quarterback that he is. The line handled Michigan's defensive line quite impressively. I came away super impressed with it's Gunnar Helm, the tight end, who has become a new sort of, I guess safety valve's the wrong word because he's like a legit weapon. Texas had a couple of impressive passes down the field, but the story in this game was, I think, the Texas defense, the Texas ability, even withstanding some injuries to running backs, to perform on the ground, timely passing, and just a more complete, better coach team given the experience on this sideline that Michigan does not have as a unit, as a coaching staff, and the ability to take advantage of an obvious weakness, which was Michigan's ability to throw the ball. Davis Warren and that passing game. Texas is just a fully formed team ready to compete on a high level, and I think the most generous thing you can say to a Michigan person in your life is it's a changing time in Ann Arbor, right? It's not rebuilding, but it's reshuffling and figuring out who's who and what systems would be ideal for the players that Michigan has on offense. Because the defense is mostly fully formed, but they just can't do everything. So I'd be bummed out on like a very micro level if I were a Michigan fan. You're still defending national champions. So like just take a couple licks of those wounds. Let's not get too sad if you're a Michigan human, but it doesn't make it any easier in the moment. I get that.
What I found really interesting about this week, and I think the Texas-Michigan game is a really good example of it.
Yeah.
These games that we discussed at the top of our preview show, the Texas-Michigan game, the Tennessee-NC State game, Colorado-Nebraska, like there were a handful of them. Texas State against UTSA, almost none of them were close. They all ended up being runaway trains to some extent. And I felt that way about this Texas-Michigan game. Everyone had highlighted this one as kind of the showpiece of the weekend. And the lasting impression for me was that it didn't feel close. It didn't feel close. Beyond that first drive, when Texas drove the field and Michigan forced them to a field goal and it went wide right, so they didn't score at all.
Right.
In that moment, it was like, okay, maybe we have a game. But beyond that, Texas did not have much trouble moving the football, especially through the air. You're right about Quinn Ewers. I thought he looked very sharp, very comfortable, wasn't sacked at all. He seemed unfazed to be playing in the big house, which is exactly what you want if you're a Texas fan. It's exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Put your star quarterback in a hostile environment like that and have him perform and just kind of go about his business.
Exactly what you want, by the way, if you are the Fox Network and you turn over your full halftime show to a Texas fan to talk about Texas. Wow, what a decision. I loved that for them, but man, I don't know where to turn. Where am I supposed to go at halftime to hear somebody talk about a game, Ty?
I know.
We've had Matthew McConaughey on the show. He's great. I love his enthusiasm. I'm glad he exists as a Texas fan. Fox turned over their halftime show to him? He's great. Unbelievable.
Michigan, on the flip side, though, you're right. Like, they're not fully formed at this point. They were last year.
Yeah.
They were great last year. And I guess the most optimistic take you could have on the Michigan side is, well, we played a really good team and they made us look bad. Which happens all the time, and you wouldn't be wrong to make that assumption, but that's only true to a degree. This is a far cry from last year's team. They're good on defense. They're not as good. They'll probably end up being fine on offense, but they're not fully formed yet, and they're still trying to figure out who their playmakers are. There aren't a whole lot of guys on offense that really scare you. There just aren't. We're still trying to figure out who they are. So Michigan's going to end up having a fine season by the time all is said and done. I'm not overly surprised by this because I think we saw the writing on the wall a little bit when we did some of our preseason work. But Texas is just at a different place right now. And to go into Michigan and win in convincing fashion in the manner that they did, 31-12, it kind of speaks for itself.
I would say the optimistic Michigan fans' viewpoint is Jaden Davis might get in there and be good at some point this year or soon or something. I think that's actually what's in the minds of a Michigan person watching this game because right? You watched a Notre Dame quarterback. Maybe that was today. I've watched an Oregon quarterback. Maybe it's partially today. Where you're like, ooh, I don't know if this is an answer here.
Yeah.
And I would imagine Michigan people, for better or worse with Davis Warren, who I don't think was expected to be the next great Michigan quarterback by any stretch, has the starting job. But you watch him and you're just like, this is tough. That's all.
Northern Illinois 16, Notre Dame 14.
All right, let's crack 12. Some knuckles, Ty. Let's crack that neck. Let's really dig in deep into this. This should be like an intellectual shiatsu situation with your Notre Dame fandom.
Hey, listen, we've done this show forever. We know how this works when Notre Dame loses. Oregon could lose by the time all is said and done, but
yeah.
Suffice to say, when Notre Dame loses, there is an influx of sadists who show up at the door and download this show and want to hear my pains. So you're going to get it.
Well, today the floor is yours, Ty, of course. But I must say, the context coming into this game was just like, hey, join a conference. You beat your one team, and now you got nobody left on the schedule before Notre Dame. Sorry. It was just such specific. The red carpet was laid out like in an impeccable way. Now
it was. And all week leading up to this game, not leading up to this game, but I would say following the A&M game, you saw it, I saw it. If you went on social media, if you follow anybody on college football, Twitter or wherever, everyone was talking about the graphic that ESPN put up on one of its shows and across its socials, giving Notre Dame something like a 22% chance to finish the season 12-0. They were the most probable college football team, period, to finish 12-0. Talk about trotting a black cat out there.
Yeah.
So this game today started off as a hangover, morphed quickly into a clunker, and then ended up as perhaps the biggest shocker that we were going to see all college football season long. Northern Illinois won this game, again, 16-14. I was high on NIU in the preseason. You know this.
Yeah.
And I believe my preview at the time was if they get a quarterback, they could challenge for the MAC. They've got a defense. They've got playmakers. They get a quarterback, maybe they can make things interesting in the MAC outside of Miami, Ohio, and Toledo. What I did not say is that they would beat Notre freaking Dame. This one I did not expect. So I give a lot of credit to Tom Hammock. I want to give it credit where it's due. If you watched any of the post-game stuff, the dude was crying. It clearly meant a lot to him. They talked on the broadcast about how it was his dream job, et cetera, et cetera. I'm happy for him as a podcast host and somebody who tries to maybe detach from that situation.
Yeah.
But, Dan.
Yeah. Walk me through it.
Come on. There is no way a team with Notre Dame's talent, a team with Notre Dame's pedigree, a team of Notre Dame's caliber should go into this game against Northern Illinois and come out having been that outplayed.
You're not paying Mike Denbrock a bunch of money for that output, right?
They're paying Mike Denbrock a ton of money, Dan.
Yeah.
They're paying a ton of money for this football program just in general.
Sure.
And Notre Dame got worked in the trenches. Notre Dame got outgained by 100 yards. There was no urgency on offense. Riley Leonard never looked comfortable. It wasn't exactly a good commercial for the Manning Passing Academy now, was it?
No, not at all.
I'd like to know what the game plan was. That's where I'm at with this, because I've watched the post-game pressers and I've read the post-game write-ups and I've obviously been out there in the Twitter sphere, however quietly, because I'm not wading into those murky waters after what I watched earlier today. But somebody's got to tell somebody what the damn game plan was, because to my untrained eye, it didn't look like there was much of one. Or there was one, and then when it didn't work, they didn't have something else. Reminded me a lot of Jared Parker. Was he calling the plays? Did he hack the radio? It felt a lot like they were unable to adapt to what was going on around them, and that was really frustrating. I got to a point in the fourth quarter where I'm thinking, is this a Marshall Redux from 2022? It had all the same vibes of that game, where it's there for Notre Dame. You know they should be able to win this game. You know they've got the players. By the way, that team wasn't as good as this team, and yet they still could not get over the hump. And so that's bothersome, Dan. That is really bothersome. And the thing that I kept coming back to as I'm reading all of this stuff out there on the interwebs is, look, you get a new coach, as Notre Dame did now 2 seasons ago. This is year 3 under Marcus Freeman.
Let me just jump in. Oregon just scored a touchdown and doinked an extra point. That's
Beautiful.
Fun. It's fun to watch. So
same page here. We're on the same page. This is
we're
great.
We're bathing in the disappointment jacuzzi. Continue.
Anytime you get a new coach, it's a journey. And I don't care if you're Alabama, starting over with Kalen DeBoer, or if you're Nevada with Jeff Choate.
Yeah,
all right. Everybody's got their own different journey. But along the way, you and fans know this. You have these press conferences that you watch and these beat writers that you read. And the coaches often talk about the things they learn along the way, especially if it's a newer coach. We learn that lesson. We need to be better as coaches, right? It's on us. We take responsibility. Brian Kelly never said that. That's not his thing. But Marcus Freeman said it a million times over. And what bothers me the most, more than anything, is it happened again. Yeah. The same stuff, when it happens over and over and over again, that's what drives me crazy. I can deal with a loss, even if it's to Northern Illinois.
Yeah.
But lose in a different way, please. Don't again get to this point where it feels like you're stuck in the mud and install or going in reverse and you can't adjust and it feels like it's there and nobody has any urgency or any plan to get him out of the muck. And that was the rub on Marcus Freeman coming into this season.
Yeah.
Maybe not specifically that, but people questioned rightly, what is this guy learning as an in-game coach? Is he getting better in game? We know the recruiting is gangbusters. We know the assistant hires have been elite. Great.
Yeah.
He's done a good job on that front. But what about in game? When the rubber meets the road on game day, what happens? This is what happens, 16-14. So they have no one to blame but themselves for this. It's incredibly frustrating. It's been hours now after this damn game. I'm still losing my mind over it because I cannot believe it happened.
Yeah.
And now I got to deal with all of the feedback that has come in. I'm spitting here. I'm going crazy. On the Reverb line, on the text line, which I did finally disable the notifications, by the way.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. I figured out how to do it. But the emails, the tweets, all that stuff has been pouring in. And now it's going to be this cacophony of folks who love to pile on Notre Dame. I get it. And we're going to now have this full season-long conversation about what it's going to take to get Notre Dame into a playoff. Is it possible without being in that conference, as you mentioned earlier?
Wait, are you talking about this year?
I'm talking about this year, yeah.
How can you even broach that conversation?
I'm not broaching it. I'm saying this is where the conversation will go now for the remainder of the year.
Yeah.
Because inevitably they're going to beat somebody by like 72 points. And it's like, well, Notre Dame looked pretty good this week. And everyone around them's losing, and it's 12 teams, and they can still... I'm going to have to deal with this all year now. And I just am not looking forward to that conversation because they lost to NIU. And for my money, you lose to a team like that, that should be a disqualifier.
I agree.
But yet I'm going to have to deal with this conversation all year. And as a fan, I'd almost rather it just be over with and let's move on and don't make me deal with that conversation. I'd love for him to be in the playoff, but I can't even think about it right now.
Drew Pine would never have let this happen.
Never in a million years.
I think Drew Pine did lose to Marshall, but he didn't. I don't think he started that game.
No.
I think Tyler Buckner got hurt in that game. Maybe I'm misremembering. Okay. Who do they have next week? Notre Dame.
I think they got Purdue on the road.
Yeah, Purdue's coming off a bye, right?
Yeah, it's Notre Dame's only other true road game outside of Texas A&M to start the year and USC to close the year out.
Where are we going next, by the way, Ty? Are we going...
I don't care.
Cyhawk? Are we going Tennessee just wiping off NC State from the bottom of their cleats? Where are we going?
Actually, you know what? While we're in this vein, let's talk about some of these near upsets that we saw.
Oh, okay, sure.
Because we lead this show off talking about the biggest games, or in some cases the biggest stories. And to your point from earlier, to your Slack message from earlier about everyone seemingly being hungover or drunk, maybe both, I don't know.
Yeah.
There were a lot of games that were closer, that were weirdly close. I accidentally said 16-12, the Notre Dame game, when I introduced that one.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of Oklahoma-Houston, which was 16-12. And a week ago, remember, I talked about Jackson Arnold and his ability to process, and he's like a computer out there.
Right.
He wasn't horrible, but their offense, speaking of things stuck in the mud, needed their defense to get a late pick, to get a safety, to give them a little bit of breathing room. Otherwise, who knows what happens with that Houston game. So they win by 4 over Houston. The Penn State game earlier in the day also drove me batty up a tree. 34-27 was the final. It's nice that Penn State ran the ball. It is not great that this game featured a pass defense on the Penn State side that didn't seem like it could stop anybody. Don't know what that was about.
Couldn't stop that tight end in the first half. They were much better in the second half.
They're better in the second half, but there's plenty of frustration to go around in that game.
By the way, I've thought to myself that Connor Bazelak is currently starting for 11 different teams in the Midwest.
Oh,
he happens to be starting for Bowling Green, but I was like, oh, Bowling Green is this week's Connor Bazelak team. Knew we went somewhere.
And then there's the Bama game.
Yeah.
The Bama game, which got out of hand late. They scored 28 points in the fourth quarter, and the final was 42-16. But if you watch that, you and I were messaging back and forth that whole time, man.
Yeah.
That was a close game. It felt like Bama was on the ropes for 3.5 quarters.
And as soon as apparently they switched to a different right tackle, they're like, oh, we figured it out. Everything's good. They scored on 3 straight drives. Apparently that's all it took.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I don't know. Look, we're going to have to talk more about some of these topics on the Tuesday episode, which is kind of morphed into our spillover show because we just kind of wax poetic here on this one and carry things through into Tuesday when we have more a chance to digest it all. But we'll get back to some of these. I would kill right now to be a Tennessee fan.
Oh, it would be so nice to be a Tennessee fan today.
I would kill to be a Tennessee fan. I'd kill to be a Nebraska fan right now, given what happened.
I'm wait and see still. But yeah.
Let's start with Tennessee then. Okay,
It's fun. No, today is a great day.
Murdered 51-10.
Yeah, baby.
Tennessee destroys NC State. How did you watch this? How much of this?
On and off. I'm going to do a majority of the watching of this probably tomorrow.
I thought about calling this a crock potting, but crock pottings usually last a little bit longer before they really get rolling.
Yeah.
This one was 20-3 at half. It was never close. Despite all the talk about NC State and the revitalized roster and the Jordan Waters transfer,
Grayson
McCall transfer, adding them to that wonderful mix, including Casey Concepcion, Tennessee laid the wood, man.
Yeah.
They laid the wood. And for as much of the conversation has been about Nico and what he could do at the quarterback position through the air, it's what Tennessee did on the ground and on defense.
I was going to say,
that catapulted them here.
The difference, if I'm a Tennessee fan, is I am tingling. Shout out Men in Blazers. Tingling that the final score of this game was 51-10, you said, was the final?
51-10,
and not
yeah.
51-23, where it wasn't really in hand until late, but, like, obviously the offense, like, 51-10, business, TCB, take care of business. Not many teams did that today.
No.
Again, power conference teams against other power conference teams or major opponents. There were a couple. There were a select couple. Tennessee was likely the most impressive, other than Texas.
Other than Texas, I would agree with that. And, I don't mean to jump the gun here when I talk about this, but given the nature of what happened elsewhere in college football and in the SEC, I was looking at Tennessee's schedule. Tennessee suddenly looks way more viable as a playoff team.
Sure.
Way more viable. Listen to some of these teams, because you know this. When we did our preseason work, we looked at the schedule and said, wow, that's tough. We like this team, but we don't know how they're going to navigate this schedule. They've got Oklahoma coming up in a couple weeks on the road, but Oklahoma looks very gettable. Arkansas is going to be a tough out. I think they proved that today, and we'll talk about that.
Sure.
But Arkansas should be beatable by Tennessee. Florida, rivalry game.
It's Lagway, Florida now, baby.
Lagway, Florida, I would have to assume it is. But
I mean, we'll
beatable.
See. Yeah.
Alabama feels gettable. Kentucky, definitely gettable.
Yeah.
Mississippi
State
State's
out that offensive line again. Yeah.
Mississippi State's a win. Georgia's probably not, but they close out the year then with UTEP and Vandy. This is a very, very workable schedule. Much more workable schedule, I should say, than we thought at the beginning of the year. And it's wins like this that leave you feeling more optimistic about what their chances look like.
Ty Hildenbrand, noted Diego Pavia doubter.
I'm not a doubter, but
that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing.
Tennessee
Ty.
should destroy Vanderbilt. You know this.
Likely, yes.
Another team that took care of business was Nebraska.
They did. Great first half.
Great first half. They didn't score it all in the second. But at that point, the game was, I think, already out of hand. And Colorado just could not get anything going against this Nebraska defense. They really couldn't. We expected that it would be a higher scoring affair. We expected, because Shedeur Sanders and at least that receiving core was going to be on the same field, that they would find some way to move the football. But Nebraska, a really good defense from a year ago, stepped up to the plate big time in this game.
Yeah. No, it was,
and totally capped them off. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the defense swarming the supposedly rebuilt Colorado offensive line. Would like to take a look at the contractors' blueprints for this Colorado offensive line after what Shedeur, again, had to withstand during this game. He threw the pick six on, like, I don't know, it was his own 2-yard line or something. Dante Dowdell, the Oregon transfer, I will note that because it's important to me. Because I liked him at Oregon. He ran well, especially in that first half early on. I think he had that first touchdown, like 25-yarder.
Yeah.
And fumble Oregon. It was out of bounds. It's okay. I'm very distracted, Ty. I'm like
That's fine.
I'm like a fish, just like what's that? I liked Dylan Raiola. Like, he forced a couple of throws, but you can see the arm talent there. If I'm a Nebraska fan, you're winning this game, and that's joy. And I came away really impressed with the Nebraska secondary. They were making a ton of plays on the ball, and if you're a Colorado fan and you can't throw the ball, what is it that you say you do here exactly, right? That if you're not moving the ball through the air consistently with speedy, talented receivers and a supposed first-round quarterback, what is it that you're bringing to my NBC primetime game? And the answer was not all that much.
I was concerned they were going to quit on Dion midway through the second quarter.
Yeah, it's valid.
And I think even the sideline report was, they're very despondent down here.
A lot of slumped shoulders.
Feel very defeated. And I don't blame them. But I just kept thinking to myself, boy, I wonder how this ends today. I wonder how this ends as a whole.
Yeah.
With the whole Deion situation, because our expectation was that they'd be better coming into this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if they are. I like Shedeur as a player. I think he's very talented. Travis Hunter, as I said before, might be the best player in college football. He's incredible. But it's a team sport. And if Nebraska is able to run that easily, if Colorado has that difficult a time protecting their best offensive player, maybe outside of Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, what would you say you do here is a pretty good way to
It's same year
to characterize it.
Maybe the defense is a little bit better. Defense is beat up, of course, but everybody's going to start to get beat up, and they just had no interest in building the depth, right, to withstand injuries and start recruiting through the high school ranks to work in younger players. So I don't know. It feels very similar to where we were last year.
Well, it's the same thing. And I tried to remain as optimistic as I could. And my point all along has been, well, let's see. Let's wait and see. Let's not assume, but let's wait and see how this goes in year 2. And I don't know. Maybe it'll turn around. I'm not optimistic that it's going to. Yeah. But suffice to say, in the early going here, it's only week 2. It feels very, very, very similar to what we saw in 2023.
All right, what do we got next?
Next up, Dan Rubenstein. Why don't we go rapid fire through a few of the wackier games out there, if that's okay with you?
Odoriferous olfactinal nominations. Odoriferous ophalactigil emancipations.
I picked out 6 games here that were nuts. Okay? Just nuts. We had a bunch of them. It wasn't just the ones at the top. The Cyhawk game. Iowa State wins 20-19 on a last-second 54-yard field goal.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with this from college kickers.
An absolute boot. 54? Was that? I thought it was 52, but 54. It was, what was his name?
Kyle Conradi.
Conradi, yeah.
So you may recall in our preview, we talked about kickers.
Yes.
And my comment on Conradi was, well, he's a walk-on freshman. And he feels comfortable inside of 60. He thinks he could go up to like 65.
Great.
But he feels comfortable. He feels comfortable that he could make a field goal that long. I think he missed one earlier in the game. But a 54-yarder at the gun, excuse me.
Yeah.
Is a pretty good way to make your mark on that Iowa State program. This was predictably a rock fight. And Iowa State couldn't really run. Iowa couldn't really throw. A lot of defense, combined 8 for 31 on third downs, that type of thing. I'm just really impressed at Iowa State's ability to come back.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of teams that come back on Iowa. They were down 13-0 at half, and it's just not something that's very common. Even though Iowa doesn't play a whole lot of offense, it's just their defense is so damn good.
They, in a very specific way, did play a good deal of offense today. There was a gentleman. The offensive line was very good. Was it Caleb Johnson on the ground for Iowa?
187 yards on the ground, yeah.
It's really difficult if you have a solid to excellent defense and have a running back run for, between 7 and 8 yards a carry. That combination, strong defense, hyper-efficient, explosive rushing attack, it's really hard to lose games with that. It's truly quite difficult. And Cade McNamara threw a couple picks. To me, the story was what they looked like in the red zone was just abysmal. It really was. Yeah. It was Jay Higgins who had the pick deep in Iowa State territory, and they could, I think they turned it into 3. It's just like there's opportunities all over the place. Cade McNamara, unfortunately for him, like when he has time, when he's able to set up in the pocket, he throws a decent ball. If he's at all forced to improvise at all, it goes haywire.
Yeah.
And it just was not happening. He was throwing away from his body, across his body. He was dirting balls. Like it was ugly to see.
If I'm giving this a word, let's give each of these games a word, a label, so that if you didn't watch the game, you kind of have a general idea for it. This is a rock fight. This is obviously a rock fight.
Yeah, I have dental.
Dental?
Yeah.
Okay. Oklahoma State 39, Arkansas 31, double overtime.
Yeah.
This one. The only word for this game is ridiculous. I watched this whole game.
Yeah. I have drunk down for this
Drunk,
game. Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
You've heard of teams playing not to lose, yeah?
Of course.
Have you ever heard of two teams playing not to win?
Yeah.
Because that's what this was.
That's the only explanation. Yeah.
A chorus of weird plays and mistakes, from missed field goals to dumb penalties to Alan Bowman doing the finger guns.
Yeah.
He goes over to the Arkansas bench.
Got penalized,
after a long completion, does the finger guns, gets penalized 15 yards, backs him up, pushing on the limits of field goal range. And then Dusty Dvorak, who we love, is trying to comprehend this in the announcer's booth. And he's talking it through, and he's saying how uncharacteristic it is for a guy like Alan Bowman, because he's been in college football forever, and he's an older kid, and he's very mature. And did you know he's got his real estate license?
I love that.
I lost it. When I heard the real estate thing, I'm like, this game is nuts. But
Tom Hammond somewhere was watching that game, goes, "Oh shit, is that true?"
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Truly unbelievable. Taylon Green, also unbelievable in this game, had close to 500 total yards.
Yeah.
In a losing effort. Where's my sound? It's somewhere here. There we go. And it could be more the case for him throughout the course of the year with that Arkansas squad, but he's big. He made some dumb mistakes. I think he's got a ton of potential. It was exciting to see him in a big game. But drunk is a really good way to put it. Ridiculous. Oklahoma State came away with the victory. I guess that's all you can ask.
Double OT? Is that what it was?
Double OT, yeah.
I really liked watching Jaquindon Jackson. I liked him at Utah. He was quite fun. The Taylon Green thing is, I would largely be a fan, I think, if I were an Arkansas fan, but something is always happening. He's going to make you feel things if you're an Arkansas fan this season.
Yes.
Hopefully like 73% of the time, pretty good things, but there are going to be times where he is absolutely drilled and sacked, and then as he's falling to the ground, throws it straight up. And you're like, I'm sorry, what went into this decision-making process? I think that's going to be the Taylon Green experience. But there does seem to be more, especially more signs of life on this defense. I mean, their defense was fine last year for the most part, but they seem to be protecting quarterback better. And the scheme makes more sense to me in this moment.
Kansas State won on a 60-yard scoop and score midway through the fourth quarter.
Saw that.
And beat Tulane 34-27. The word that bounced around in my head with this one was wow. Very simply, wow.
Yeah.
Because given what happened to App State today,
Oregon just returned a punt for a touchdown. 26-20. Continue.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Given what happened to
live
App
update
State,
for a recorded show. Continue. Sorry. Given what happened with App State, yeah.
And the Clemson, the Clemson matchup, I'm content to say that Tulane is my current number one G5 team.
In a losing effort?
In a losing effort. They acquitted themselves well here.
I mean, we'll see what happens with
K-State.
Boise, I suppose, as we're speaking. Close with the top 10 team. Yeah.
It feels to me like Tulane's got a much better defense. They are finding ways to put up tons of yardage. They obviously were good enough in this game to come away as the victor. They weren't able to get it done. But I feel like this is a pretty good barometer for where they're at. We're going to find out what they can do next week against Oklahoma. That'll be a road game, and Oklahoma seems vulnerable as well. K-State seems vulnerable, Dan. 2 weeks in a row now where I came out of the K-State game feeling like someone's going to pick them off pretty soon.
It's a tough secondary in a not a good way, K-State's, and Avery Johnson is still a little bit more raw than I would have hoped as a passer. Playmaker, yes, there's intrigue there. Still a little bit raw, this offense. I mean, they definitely, it's Matt Wells who's the coordinator there now, co-coordinator. They definitely came out in the second half better. Like, there was more energy to K-State on offense in that second half, clearly. But, yeah, I'm a little bit more worried about my K-State success predictions based on what happened in the first half in this one. But it's still early. It's still. I'm willing to extend grace as long as it serves my specific predictions.
Pitt 28, Cincinnati 27.
Yeah.
My word is elation. My word is many words. You've got to be kidding me, because Pitt was down 27-6 in the third quarter. They got 3 touchdown passes from Eli Holstein, who wasn't good for most of the game,
right?
But came to play in the final 15 minutes. Then Pitt kicks 35-yarder to win, 28-27 over Cincinnati. Some of the online discourse about this game was pretty funny.
Yes.
Notably, Cincinnati fans calling for the departure of one Scott Satterfield for yakking this game away. But Pitt continues the trend, man. The offense is finding ways to put up points. It took them a while to get there, but you'll take the win going into the backyard brawl next week.
Des Reed, he was the otherworldly dude for Pitt today. I mean, Eli Holstein came on obviously late. We went for 2 points a couple different times in weird spots.
Didn't get any of them.
Didn't get them. But, yeah, Cincinnati in that second half, I don't know. They were throwing more than I thought they would be every time I tuned in, flipping around the sport. But I suppose good for Pitt and that offense coming alive.
Cal 21, Auburn 14. Mistake prone.
Oh, man.
Mistake prone. Auburn threw 4 picks. They had 5 turnovers. Cal didn't have any. And this was a game that was kind of happening in slow motion. Like, we talked about it. Cal had a lead. They maintained the lead. They didn't score any more points. They maintained the lead. And eventually they got a little bit more separation later on in the game and ended up winning this one 21-14. But kind of a bad loss for Auburn, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, when your quarterback throws 4 picks, I agree.
4 picks is never good, but given Cal's inability to run the ball just a week ago.
Yeah, Jay Knott's beat up. I thought Mendoza was pretty good. The receivers are coming alive for Cal a little bit, and there is something about that, like Justin Wilcox game planning September magic, that, I don't know, Cal secondary looked sharp. The defense looked like they were in the right place. I don't know what that means. I was talking to our buddy Kevin, who mentioned it was like just like a classic ACC-SEC rivalry, Cal Auburn. Yeah, it's impressive and disappointing all at the same time because this is more of the bad version that we saw from Auburn last season. And I think, we had hoped for, just in terms of being in the college football public, a little more at home against a Cal team that struggled last week.
And finally, Illinois 23, Kansas 17. This one was just weird.
I'm voting for Zachary Franklin in a few weeks. I don't know about you.
Yeah?
Yeah. He's just ridiculous. If you have that kind of one-handed catch in your arsenal, I'm ready for you to lead this country. Yeah. I'm ready. That's the qualification. I am a very dumb voter.
One-handed catches. That's all it takes. Yeah, nice little fourth quarter rally here for Illinois. They scored 10 unanswered to end up winning this game. And it was one of those matchups going into it where you looked at the point spread and it was just strange. Felt strange, felt different, felt like a game where Vegas knows something that maybe the rest of us don't. Kind of a weird game last year as well. So wouldn't be a surprise to see this result. But 23-17, couple picks, I think, for Jalen Daniels.
Yeah,
right?
3 picks, I believe.
Yeah. Not a great offensive showing for the Jayhawks.
It was a nice turnaround story, right? You're enthusiastic. You're feeling great. You're feeling the vibes about Luke Altmaier, who had such a down game last year against Kansas, and he came alive late. It was Pat Bryant, who was also making big plays. Illinois wasn't able to run the ball that well. But no, Illinois sort of staying with this one, super impressive. And hopefully, again, I say this a lot, you just want to be a pain in the ass if you're Illinois, right? You want to have your act together, and it looks like Illinois is trending in that direction. Fingers crossed if you're an Illini person.
Dan, it's late at night. Should we do some role playing?
Oh, of course.
Role play.
If I'm not me, who the hell am I?
Thank you, Arnold. This is where we put ourselves in the shoes of various fan bases out there. How would you feel if? Let's start with you, Dan Rubenstein.
Yeah.
Step foot into another's shoes.
Anybody today?
Anybody you want.
How would I feel if I were a... Ooh, good question. I'm running through. How about Virginia, right?
Oh.
I'm kind of walking on air right now if I'm a Virginia fan.
Fun game today, wasn't it?
Under the radar, comeback, Anthony Calandria, fun. Probably one of those games that you had circled as like a must win if you're a Hoos fan. I'm in a good place right now if I'm all about Virginia.
If I'm a Syracuse fan,
oh yeah.
If I'm a Syracuse fan, I am considering sending that champagne to Ryan Day.
Yeah,
the champagne that Fran Brown joked about. Because
Kyle McCord in New York, baby.
Kyle McCord threw 4 touchdowns, threw for 381 against Georgia Tech. They end up winning that game. Georgia Tech was ranked. They were ranked 31-28 was the final score. They played that game at home, but the vibes are really strong for the Orange. There's no denying it. They're really, really strong right now. I don't know where it goes from here. It is a workable schedule. It seems like they've gotten off on the right foot. It seems like Kyle McCord has integrated well into the system. So sky's the limit, man. I don't know. We shall see.
If I'm a Penn State fan, I'm kind of sulking right now. Was it Tyler Warren is the new tight end, the new star guy? Probably. Maybe.
I don't know if he's not the new tight end, but
I know, but like
he might be their primary receiving target this year.
Yeah.
Because I was hopeful that maybe we would see more of other guys. And, well, we did get one catch from Julian Fleming, one catch for 3 yards, the big transfer. I was hopeful that maybe they would try to spread the ball around a little bit more and get that passing game tuned up. And thankfully, the running game is working. That's good.
Yes.
But Tyler Warren, yeah, he was the primary target, and there wasn't a lot to go around for other receivers.
If I were a Michigan State fan, I would be yelling, "Suck it," outside of Ty's window right now. I don't know if that's an adjective. But Aiden Childs, again, somebody else maybe like Taylon Green. You're getting something on every play. Who knows how good? Who knows? It's what Nick Marceau. That's an absolute dude at receiver for Michigan State. Big win for Sparty.
Some of the quotes from Aiden Childs in the postgame were actually quite interesting because he talked about he lied to himself in his week 1 start. It was his first start ever, and he was scared.
Sure.
Didn't want to admit to himself that he was scared, but he was scared. He felt the butterflies. He was nervous, and he felt like that affected his performance. Whereas this one, predictably, he didn't feel that way. And as such, 363 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, did have a couple picks, but not only did they come back as a team and show a lot of fight to win this game, but they did it against Maryland. And a Maryland defense that I still contend is pretty good in the front 7. So it's not a win that we had circled for Michigan State at the start of the year, even last week. But again, showing that fight, playing as well as they did, it seems like they did, as we often discuss here on the show, they did get better from week 1 to week 2, and that's promising if you're a Michigan State fan. So good on them.
If I'm a Kentucky fan, I'm thinking about maybe getting a jump on some holiday shopping. I am, getting that jumbo Costco skeleton for Halloween.
Dude,
I'm
this?
busying my mind to get away from
was
Kentucky
this?
football.
What was this game?
Man. It was an offensive line that is not ready for SEC play. It is, I don't know, man. They couldn't handle, was it Dylan Stewart on the defensive line for South Carolina? They were throwing 2-3 guys at him. Like there's a couple of scary dudes on this South Carolina defensive line. We buried them too quickly.
If I'm a Kentucky fan, I don't know if I am any more or less upset than a Notre Dame fan right now. Because they were outplayed in every facet of this game. They did not look prepared. Brock Vandegrift was not good.
No.
Nobody was good. Everything felt broken. And the result, 31-6 against South Carolina, is just confounding. It is just confounding. We know that this South Carolina team under Shane Beamer has a tendency to be a pain in the ass. That's just their identity.
Yeah.
Great. It's worked for them. But this was unexpected and unexpectedly bad if you're a Kentucky fan. And I'd be pissed off if I were them. I really would.
If I were a Clemson fan, I'd be sipping a late night beverage right now. That's a nice net crack, Ty. I know that's a term we generally use later on in the season. But like after that Georgia game, scoring 3, and I experienced that, sometimes I got to make it about me when Oregon lost whatever it was 49-3 to Georgia to open the year a couple of years ago, and they got a net crack against BYU the next week. For Cade Klubnik, and it's App State, but App State's quality. For Cade Klubnik to look as strong as he did, Phil Maffa looked quite strong, especially early on. Was it Bryant Wesco?
Right.
Who was legitimately a big weapon for Clemson. It's App State. We'll see what they do against the rest of their schedule. But if Clemson is who Clemson wants to be, that should be the score of this game.
If I'm a Florida fan right now, I want Billy Napier to start DJ Lagway the rest of the way.
Who'd they play? Samford? Furman?
Samford.
Okay.
If I'm Billy Napier,
yeah,
and I want to keep my job, I start DJ Lagway the rest of the way. Because what happens when you start a freshman quarterback?
Your extended grace by your bosses, like he's a
Your
freshman.
extended grace.
We got to keep this train going, see where it leads.
Got to keep the train going. Got to ride the wave.
Yeah.
You risk losing anybody in this day and age if you make a coaching change. Maybe DJ Lagway has a connection with Billy Napier. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I do know that he threw for 456 yards and 3 touchdowns. I don't care who it was against. That is a sizable amount of passing yardage for a freshman quarterback. And so if I'm a Florida fan, especially given the fact that the expectations were relatively low coming into this year,
Yeah.
I don't see why you would even go back to Graham Mertz if he's healthy. What's the point? What's the point?
Man.
Stick with this guy and see what happens. Ride it out.
I know. I think that's the gut reaction, but like he's still a true freshman, right? That Graham Mertz's understanding of the offense. And so you have to like, are you willing to take those lumps? And even though you think it might not cost him his job, I don't know, if they go 4-8 or something like that with this schedule and a freshman, somebody else is going to be the beneficiary of DJ Lagway getting those reps, to me. So
if I'm a Texas State fan, Dan,
oh yeah, you're thumbing your nose at me.
I'm thumbing my nose at you, but I'm thinking Sun Belt. I'm thinking Sun Belt title because a 39-point win over a good UTSA team out of the American gives you a fair amount of confidence. A 39-point win over UTSA has you looking at your own schedule and thinking, okay, how many of these teams along the way do we think realistically, are as good, if not better, than UTSA? And I don't know if there are that many of them. I think they're in a really advantageous spot. I was encouraged by the fact that they didn't give up a lot of points. Defense was such a problem for them a year ago.
Yeah.
That's not to say that this was any kind of like showpiece game that we're going to hold up and put on a mantle moving forward. But this was an interesting interconference measuring stick that I think will come up at some point down the road as we start comparing G5 schools. I was really impressed by that showing from Texas State today.
Again, recording this in the middle of the night Saturday, Liberty is down in the middle of third quarter to New Mexico State. So just in terms of that conversation around Texas State, conference title, representing G5, whatever, because you didn't throw Texas State into that conversation earlier. They sit at 2-0. It's going to be an interesting field this year. It's going to be pretty wide open.
If I'm an Ohio State fan, I'm bored out of my mind, and that's a good thing.
It's great.
Because they are pounding teams. They've beaten their first two opponents 108-6. It would be nice for the rest of us if they played somebody of substance. I'm not saying this to dunk on Ohio State. They've been phenomenal.
No, we just want to see it.
I just would like to see it.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Smith is ridiculous. You see his touchdown again?
I did not.
I mean,
didn't watch a second of this game. We'll speed through it tomorrow.
Yeah. Don't speed too quickly. You're going to miss him running the length
Yeah.
of the field. He's incredible.
Okay.
Truly incredible. So good on them. Another win for Ohio State. How about Indiana, baby?
Over Western Illinois?
77 points is still 77 points.
They have somebody next week, though, right? UCLA, maybe?
77 to something. 77-3, I think, was the final score.
Friday
Indiana
night.
and Kurt Cignetti just ran it up. Good game for Curtis Rourke. They had 3 of their quarterbacks involved in this game. They only missed 2 completions the full way through. I would like to check when the last time was that Indiana scored this many points. But if you're an Indiana fan, you feel pretty good about that. If you're a Wisconsin fan,
You're
I don't know,
blah,
man.
right? A little blah.
I don't know, man. I don't know how I'd feel. I'm kind of shrugging. I'm sort of like underwhelmed, but still hopeful, kind of in that really weird gray area. I don't get good vibes from this team right now.
Well, we got somebody next week, right? Alabama.
Yeah.
You got Alabama coming to town.
Yeah, maybe they'll suddenly get better against Bama.
If I'm a Northwestern fan, I might be throwing myself into Lake Michigan with the way that game we went to. By the way,
yeah,
quick
let's
little
talk
shout
about
out
that.
to Adam G.
Yeah.
Friend of the family, Adam G, for hooking up the tickets. It was a very cool experience, I gotta say. Very cool experience. You're gonna be dealing with a lot of wind if you're a Big Ten quarterback this year.
It is ridiculously windy. I described it on Twitter as like playing football at the British Open.
Yeah. Yeah.
The wind whips in off of that lake. You can't even really feel it if you're in the stands.
No.
But when you're down kind of field level, you can feel it whipping in.
Yeah.
And almost every punt returner was double clutching.
Scared for his life. Yeah.
Scared for his life almost every single time because you kick a knuckleball up there, who knows which direction it's going to go. That was interesting. Martin Stadium, I give Northwestern University a ton of kudos for this because they did something very unique in building that stadium. And we went there because we wanted to experience it, because we knew it was unique and different and one-on-one and all these things, these superlatives that we discuss. And we wanted to see it for ourselves. It didn't help that it started raining a little bit sideways given the wind.
Yep.
And it got colder the more the game went on. But the fact that
you got your hollow bones at your age. You
I
gotta
do.
watch out. Yeah.
The fact that they made that as much of a production as they did, I give them a ton of credit. It was a really, really interesting experience. We had a lot of fun. We did.
Look, every box is checked other than having a fun offense for Northwestern football.
Yeah.
And some real dicey play calls at the end there. It was double overtime, I believe.
Yep.
Malik Murphy has an absolute cannon, and he was struggling. I mean, they weren't even trying to go that much downfield. But, yeah, you're right. It's going to be a ton of rock fights as Ashton Genty scores a long touchdown to tie the game.
I have two more here.
Yeah.
If I'm a Utah fan,
okay,
I am holding my breath.
Yeah, a little bit worried. Cam
am.
Rising's hand? Is that what it is?
It's his hand, his fingers.
Okay.
Some sort of injury. Kyle Whittingham said, quote, "It's not real serious," which is good because after he left, Utah did not score against Baylor. They scored all their points in the first half, none in the second. He went out of the game, I think, with about 2 minutes left in the second quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point forward, it was nothing on offense. So much of that Utah project this year is built around Cam Rising, built around him coming in and kind of reprising his old role and his old skill set. And if he's going to be hurt or if he's going to be hampered in any way, shape, or form, it makes the Big 12 interesting. It makes the Big 12 interesting. I also have here, to that point, if I'm a West Virginia fan,
mm-hmm.
I'm thrilled to look around the conference and see what's going on.
Oh, everybody's everywhere. It's chaos in the Big 12 already.
It's already chaos. It's already chaos. Not to say we've had a bunch of upsets, but you have seen warning signs that there could be some to come. If I'm West Virginia, if I'm UCF, if I'm even TCU, even BYU, I don't know.
Yeah.
All of these teams got to be looking around thinking some of these opponents may be more gettable than we initially thought.
Yeah.
And I say that's especially true for West Virginia because I think they have a good team. And I know they were stopped to some degree on offense and had some difficulty against Penn State in their first game of the year. But I still think it's a good team. And in this conference, the way it's presently composed, I think there's a lot of room to grow there.
If I'm an SMU fan, I'm pretty confused. Pretty confused about the start to this season for the Mustangs.
That makes two of us, man.
Yeah. Offense has fallen off a cliff.
Brutal.
Lose to BYU. By the way, shout out Jake Retzlaff, right? Struggled when called pressed into duty last year. Has quietly been very good this year. That's all.
Let's play those week 2 reverbs.
Let's do that.
I put it off as long as I could, but
they're going to be so nice to you. You know that.
Oh, they're always nice to me. Let's have a listen.
It's Jimmy from Ann Arbor. Ah, it's been a long, long day. But at least we didn't lose to Northern Illinois.
Hi, this is Ethan coming to you from Northwestern Medicine Field.
Sucker Joe here. Long time for baller, first time for caller.
Hey, this is Reagan from Texas. I just watched my Longhorns turn in a pretty dominating performance at the Big House. And I guess I just wanted to say, woo! Woo!
Cincinnati blows a 27-6 lead against Pitt at home, and Scott Satterfield should be gone tomorrow.
I just got done watching my OSU Cowboys win another cardiac arrest game. Store up on their heart medication. Go Pokes.
So I'm driving home on 322 right now, and it just hit me in the face. Connor Bazelak played for Tom Allen. He just knows all of his tendencies. Win your clunkers, baby.
Raise your hand if you lost to a MAC team today. It wasn't Penn State. We are, ND is not.
Hey, this is Rocco in Virginia. Ty, can I interest you in a Brent Pry for Marcus Freeman trade? I straight up, or do we need to throw in a draft pick to make this happen?
Here's a fun fact. In the last century, here are the teams that have won at both Alabama and at Notre Dame. Georgia, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and the Northern Illinois Huskies.
Let's go. The bear will not quit. The bear will not die. And the bear will get Auburn? Burn Auburn? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Doesn't matter. Go Bears.
Stephen Godfrey might be afraid of Hugh Freeze, but the Cal Bears are not. Go Bears.
As my beloved Chips are down 28-0 at halftime in the first ever game at Pitt Stadium, time to pour a glass of Fireball so I no longer have to feel this moment. Whoa, whoa. Fire up.
Just wanted to shout out my Indiana Hoosiers for setting a school record for points scored in a game.
Billy Edwards and I both are the same major, the same year. We're both gingers. I might need to go into hiding.
Are we sure that Tim Lester doesn't have a little bit of Brian Ferentz in him? Go Clones, baby.
Wow. Garrett Riley had a conversation with Dabo Sweeney. I quote, "I'm a peacock. You gotta let me fly."
Wanted to harken back to your May 30th episode with Nick Roush from Kentucky. He said, that's the season in week 2, South Carolina, 3:30 kickoff. Lost 2 in a row to Shake Bieber. Quote, I can't stand that guy. Well, make it 3, Nick, buddy. Go Cox. And by the way, let's stop this Fire Shane talk. That's ludicrous.
Hey, the results of the last 2 weeks are indicative that either the transfer portal is creating parity or we've opened some entirely different portal and we're entering into some kind of pre-apocalyptic era.
Beautiful Reverbs. Thank you to our guy Shay, as always, for cutting those up, for leaving a lot of the Notre Dame ones out. He did that on purpose.
Thoughtful
for me.
Guy.
He didn't say he was going to do that. I expected a lot worse. My hunch is that there is going to be a supplementary, shall we say, Reverbs coming up here that will maybe post out on Patreon as well, because we had so many calls. We had hundreds of calls this time around. It always is this way anytime Notre Dame loses. So thank you to Shane. Thank you to everybody who dialed in at 855-VERBAL-3. Again, if you do have feedback on the show or anything that you would otherwise be inclined to email in or tweet in or any of that stuff, you can text the Reverb line. We do read that stuff as well. It's 855-VERBAL-3. Maybe we'll play some of that on the Tuesday or Thursday show, Dan. We did have a caller mention Pitbull Stadium. I'm glad somebody mentioned that. I was going to, but Florida International wins 52-16 on the, I guess, inaugural game in Pitbull Stadium, where they gave out the Pitbull pins. I stand by what I said on the Thursday show. If somebody could send me one of those damn pins, I'll put it on the hat. I will wear that pin, that Pitbull pin, with pride if I can get a hold of one. So send us an email, solidverbal@gmail.com, if you have
sort
access.
of the new Buckeye sticker, the Pitbull pin.
Let's just see how many we can get. I'll put it all
all
in the Solid Verbal hat, which you can find, by the way, at merch.solidverbal.com.
I love that.
Dan Rubenstein, we have one final thing to do.
Please.
Who are our dudes for week 2?
I've got Andrew Makuba at Texas. Didn't mention him in talking about Texas, Michigan, but was everywhere in that defensive backfield for Texas. Des Reed I mentioned for Pitt. Nico Iamaleava. Did I nail it? Did I do pretty good?
Nailed it. Stuck the landing.
Tennessee. Kyle Conradi.
Yeah.
Your freshman kicker at Iowa State. Just bombing it from deep. How about Kyle McCord? How about the Cade Klubnik to Bryant Wesco connection? How about Anthony Calandria, your guy, Zachary Franklin, who is leading this country to prosperity via one-handed catches, Nick Marsh, Dylan Stewart at South Carolina, Caleb Johnson on the ground, Jaquindon Jackson on the ground in a losing effort as well.
All righty. Thank you to one and all for tuning into this show. Thank you for being kind to me.
Yeah. Oregon just fumbled it away, by the way.
Be kind to Dan on the Tuesday episode.
We'll see. 27 all at time of recording, about 10 and a half minutes left. I'm not feeling great.
here's the way this works for those new listeners out there. I know we always have a bunch of new listeners whenever Notre Dame loses. Tuesday's show will be a spillover show.
Yeah.
Where we talk about things that we did not get to on this one. Our goal with this episode, of course, is just to hit the highlights. After giving ourselves about 48 hours to digest everything, we'll get back at it. Put out a show Tuesday morning on the public feed, Monday afternoon on the Patreon feed, where we'll talk about these issues and many others. We're also going to throw a bone out to the Patreon of Verballerhood, help them pick some of the topics that we did not get through on today's episode that we do need to discuss if we want to be complete about our coverage here of college football.
Yes. By the way, Boise scored. About to be 34-27.
These updates are not going to age well in on-demand audio format.
No, you know what? But I'm just living in the moment with you, Ty. You're down on sleep. You're probably malnourished, dehydrated. I'm trying to give you sustenance here. That may be that I will be
today,
joining
my friend.
you.
It's been a journey today. It will be a journey throughout the rest of this Oregon game with about 10 minutes left in the game. We will update everybody on our next episode. Thank you, thank you all for your continued support. It does mean the world to us. Hope you'll hit follow or subscribe, or if you've already done that, tell a friend so that we can continue growing our great community here. Dan Rubenstein, let's get some rest, shall we?
Let's do it.
Enjoy the rest of the game, wherever you may be. Thank you again for your ongoing support. We will talk to you all soon. Stay solid.
Peace.